You're listening to the Field Coach Experts podcast, where field support stops being an afterthought and starts driving results. I'm Angela Coté.
And I'm Jen Brannon. And we're here to challenge the way franchisors think about coaching, accountability, and what actually helps franchisees grow.
Because too many field coaches are stuck putting out fires when they should be helping franchisees go from being stuck operators to confident, growth minded owners. Well, JB, this is exciting. Here we are. We've been blown away by the impact we've been seeing in brands that are adopting a strategic growth coaching approach. We're seeing franchisees become true business owners. We're seeing field teams feeling empowered and equipped to drive franchisee performance and hold franchisees accountable to goals. And franchisors are seeing profitable, scalable growth.
And unfortunately, there's still many franchisors that are stuck in the old ways, the way they used to do it, kind of outdated, just supporting franchisees, and they're not really moving the needle.
And it's not their fault, really. When you think about it, I think back to my time in the field and I think back to my time as a franchisee, and it, for some reason, isn't something people gave a lot of thought to.
Yeah, so that's why we're here, because it's time for us to shine a light on what modern franchisee support actually looks like. And we want to help more brands take that first step to transform the way that they are supporting their franchisees.
Yes. And I have to say, I can't resist saying, I have been genuinely humbled by the number of people who tell us that they still listen to our original podcast, the Franchise Growth Pod. And so people have been saying, when are you guys going to do your podcast again? So here we are. And so, JB, here we go. You ready to get real with me?
Sure am. Let's go.
Okay, let's do it. So I thought it'd be fun if we start by sharing all the things that we're seeing, or we were seeing, that made us realize we need to fix this problem. That we were seeing and we still see when it comes to what's broken in franchisee field support. So why don't you start? What's the first thing that comes to mind when I say, like, what were or are we seeing?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is that coaches just evolve into the role and they're never trained how to coach. That's a
Right.
big one that we see.
Yeah, and because of that, I remember as a franchisee, and maybe you might remember this yourself as a franchisee. Both of us have been in that role or seat ourselves. I remember the quote unquote coaches coming in, and because they didn't have the right training, they would default to compliance and authority. Like, they didn't know what to do when they came to my store, so they would just that was where they'd go. And that, often it'd be like going through a checklist, like, just, okay, let's see if your light bulbs are working and your freezer temperatures are correct. And are you wearing the right uniform? But that wasn't helping me grow my business. So yeah, throw out some more. What else?
I think that a lot of times those poor coaches, they feel like they are responsible for everything. Marketing says, get your franchisees to do this. And, finance says, get your franchisees to do that. And they're on call 24 hours a day and there's no boundaries. And they're really responsible for everything that has to do with the franchisee. And that is not how you support your coaches to be able to then support your franchisees.
Yeah, I even heard a story recently on one of our field support roundtables about a person who was in a field coaching role, and he had a franchisee calling him and texting him on his honeymoon, and he didn't know what to do, and he was like, I don't know, like, in order to be credible, in order to be a good field coach, I'm putting quotes for anybody that's just listening and not seeing this, but if they're, to be a good field coach, that must mean I need to be available. And we see field coaches struggling with credibility, and I think we've heard this from them directly, that they feel like that's one way to build credibility. So yeah, no boundaries is a hot one. What are some other things? Or go
Well,
ahead. Yeah.
one of the things as a franchisee, and I was a franchisee for a lot of years, is that, man, did I ever love it when my field coach told me what my goals should be and what I should do for my business. That didn't really go over well.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing, is when we are telling our coaches that they need to tell the franchisees their goals. That is not the way that you get buy-in by franchisee in order to do the things that they need to do in order to grow their business. They should be the ones figuring out what their own goals are with the help of the coach.
Yeah, I would say that never works, but especially with someone like you who definitely has a strong, like strong-minded, and you like to have some control. Like someone coming in and telling you, well, here's your goals. That, yeah, is kind of crazy, right? And we unfortunately see that all too often. One thing that I have been hearing lately is franchisors that don't realize how hard it really is for the field coaches, and they think that the field coaches are being too empathetic. They don't understand the role. They don't understand how important the role is, the franchisor. And they don't realize that the coaches, what they're actually going through. So I think help, that's something that's broken too, is how can we help franchisors understand, why that empathy is important. And we'll talk in a minute. One of my other questions I want to get into is some of the traits in a good field coach. So we can get into that empathy in a minute. But okay, what
Yeah.
else?
Yeah, I've got another big one and we're hearing it a lot all the time. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was a franchisee that did really well, and I was kind of a leader and a top performer. And when they had coaches that were just focused on my operations, I had no buy-in to the coaching. So I didn't show up. I didn't engage. They would email me. I would ignore them, because I had that mentality of, what are they going to teach me? I've been doing this a long time, and this is this, young person who's a new coach, and what are they going to do for me? So I just never participated until they brought in a coach that knew how to coach and turned it around, not on my operations, but about, again, my goals, what was important to me, how I wanted to grow my business, where I wanted to see my business get to. And she became my accountability partner and my strategic partner. And that's what I needed as a top performer. I didn't need somebody who was going to, tell me how I should create an invoice or things like that. And we see that again all of the time, is where the brands feel that coaches are there to coach operationally only, and that's what makes a coach.
Yeah, yeah, I struggled with that as well, because having come from the brand that I was a franchisee in, I had been on the field team side. I had been teaching franchisees the operational side myself. And so then it was like, well, what are you going to teach me that I don't already know? Because the brand at the time hadn't adopted this more proactive approach. And oh man, how much better everything could have been if they had helped me really get clear on, like, what is your vision for the longer term, and what do you need to do to get there? And okay, you're resisting this idea. Well, let's see if we can get to the bottom of that. Let's work with you, right? And yeah, that's definitely something that's missing. Okay, last one or two. Anything else coming to mind for, yeah,
Um,
what's broken?
oh gosh. Um, I think when, I don't think we mentioned this one, but when our coaches are compliance officers,
Mm-hmm.
when that is the main thing, that's the role, right? It's not, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
even just coming with their checklist, but it's, they're the ones that are
Mm,
always giving the message around compliance, because a great way to erode trust and relationship is to have your coach bringing down the hammer on your franchisees.
mm-hmm.
And so that's a big mistake. What we want our coaches to do is to work with the franchisee on being motivated to want to be compliant, to be, again, their partner, to help them understand the why to be compliant, and to do the things, to make sure they're following brand standards, and so they understand the
Right.
why, and that they want to, and to help them get there, as opposed to it being, well, the teacher said this is what you need to do. Because again, we're, as franchisees, our franchisor is not our parent, they're not our boss, they're not our teacher. And so why are they gonna work with us on that? Now, of course, we all know there are times when the relationship changes a little bit. And, if you've got a franchisee that hasn't paid royalty in 6 months, well, we can't have that. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Mhm.
But it shouldn't be the coach that is your main compliance officer for sure.
Well, I think the key point you just said there, in case anybody missed this, but the really key point there is that when you build that trusting relationship, you create a situation where the franchisee, where you help them understand why being compliant, what's in it for them, and why it's important. And so they're, like you said, they're more motivated to being compliant as opposed to having to have even a person come in and do a big compliance check. I'm not saying there's no room for compliance checks, but if you have the right coaching, then you are going to naturally have a better, likely more compliance naturally and organically, which is kind of segueing us into what great field coaching looks like. But I do have one more I really wanted to mention. I don't know if maybe this was implied, but the firefighting, firefighting, or like, I will never forget, how often I would show up when I was on the field side, and they're like, okay, I need your help. And, the delivery didn't show up, and my manager just quit, and, all these emergency things. And I just felt so bad for them. And so I not only did I know that I could help them, I could be a problem solver for them, but I kind of got like a little dopamine hit off of like, I can do this. And now I'm going to be more credible because I had all the answers. But the problem with that we see, and I felt, and it happens, is that you end up with burnt out coaches, because then you get that situation I mentioned earlier where the franchisee's calling on their honeymoon. So what's missing is a coach being able to turn that around from, here's all my problems, to like, and we'll get into that I think in a minute here, but how do we turn that into, okay, we hear you and that's unfortunate, but do you really need me for that? Let's see if we can talk goals. So we'll come back to that maybe in a minute. So, but yeah, let's segue into what field coaching looks like when the team adopts a strategic growth coaching approach, which of course we coined that term, but it really is what it sounds like: strategic growth coaching versus reactive hotline support. So where the field support team is where the field support is systemized and coaches are properly trained with the skills they need to make an impact. And I always like to preface this with, because people always wonder, well, can you really systemize it when they're individual personalities and behaviors and learning styles? Yeah, because you can, with the strategic growth coaching, you're actually coaching the coaches on how to deal with those different personality types, still using the framework. So when we talk about what does it look like when field teams adopt that strategic growth coaching approach, because I know you've directly worked with brands, you oversee our team implementing this. We're working with numerous platform brands that are trying to systemize across all the brands. What pops in your head when I say that? Like, what are some things you're seeing in comparison to the brokenness?
Yeah, and that's what the framework does. Strategic growth coaching, it's a process, it's a framework, and it gives you structure. So many coaches or brands will come to us saying things like, all of our coaches are doing it their own way. We want them to talk
Yeah.
about metrics, we want them to look at the marketing, and we want them to do these things, but everybody's got their own style, they've got their own way, they take different notes, there's no structure. When we talk about strategic growth coaching, it is the structure, it is the toolbox, it is taking these these franchisees through the process so that we understand what their long-term vision is for their business, what their goals are, short and long, and kind of most importantly is, what are those action steps that they're going to take, that they've decided on, we haven't told them, that they're going to take toward those goals. And so we really want to give that structure, and the cadence is regular. And because of that approach, what happens is franchisees like me are bought in because there's value to me
Mhm.
coming to these sessions. There's value because we're working toward what I want out of my business. So, and then not only that, but as far as the framework goes, but a good coach is coaching, not consulting. And what that means is, consulting is where I'm coming to you, Angela, and I'm saying, okay, what do you need? Well, I need the latest social media graphic on, the new price for a smoothie or whatever it is. And I say, okay, fine, I'll get that for you. Or what should I do? My manager quit. Here's what you should do. Or, okay, let's look at your numbers. Okay, this is what you should do. You should do X, Y, and Z. That's consulting. Coaching is where we have coaching skills, techniques, and abilities where we're using things like our active listening and our impactful questioning. There's a whole slew of other things, emotional intelligence, where we are asking these questions to get the franchisees to respond in a way that then they talk it through in their head and things make sense to them. And then all of a sudden they say, okay, you know what I think we should do? I'm going to do X, and almost like it's their idea. And it's amazing coaching techniques that is able to help them get there. So I think that is key, because here we're being proactive with our franchisees as far as looking to their goals, and then we have the coaching skills to help get them there so that they can understand or create the plan themselves in their own mind and be bought into it.
With guidance, of course, right from the coach. Like
Of
we can,
course.
yeah, yeah, and we're not saying only coaching. We're saying sometimes there's a time where you put a consulting hat on and you give answers or whatever. But
Well,
we should.
actually, that's a good point, Angela. Actually, coaching, I'm just talking about the difference between consulting and coaching, but coaching is everything. Coaching is consulting. Nowhere are we saying that we're not giving operational support. That's a part of it. We sometimes, I'm sure coaches, any coaches that are listening, sometimes we're psychiatrists and therapists, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
we are teaching. Sometimes we are guiding and giving advice. But the true piece that is often missing is that those coaching skills of everything I kind of just talked about.
Right. And I get, yeah, okay. I'm learning too. Just the way to word this, like that coaching really encompasses also the being proactive, like as a coach, knowing that, oh, wait a minute, we're acting really reactively right now. We are just, I'm just answering your questions and we're not thinking forward. And I'm going to leave here in an hour or get off this call with you in an hour and I'll have helped you solve a couple problems, but we won't have helped grow your business. So it's having that, I guess that well, the tools, the resources, the confidence, and feel like to be able to know how to get that franchisee to do what needs to happen in those calls. And a funny thing is, if you told me this, a few years ago, I'd be like, you're not gonna be able to get people to do that, but it kind of seems like we are.
We
So,
are. It's
we
because
are.
all of
We're
it's
hearing.
techniques. It's
Yeah,
all techniques and strategies that nobody ever teaches our coaches
yeah,
until
yeah,
we created our program
yeah. We
that does
just had
that.
to create it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and if people are listening to this and they're like, even just on my own, what can I go do? Like these are, I think there's certain elements, and actually, we'll get to this kind of as we go here. But there's certain elements that people can even take on their own and go, oh yeah, how often am I just giving an answer versus maybe asking the franchisee, well, if I work here, how would you solve that? Right. That's just a super simple example where and that's how those boundaries get crossed. Is coaches end up like we talked earlier with what's broken. They just answering the questions and not stopping and going, well, how can we maybe teach a man to fish versus just giving the fish. So okay, a couple more, let's go a little bit more granular on what when we say the like coaching, it's a coaching approach, it's proactive. What are some of the results you're seeing, because you've been closer, really direct with the brands that we work with when they're using that coaching forward approach?
Well, I think the number one, well, there's a bunch of them, right? We are the trust between the coach and the franchisee grows, because it's not just based on, oh, they're really likable. Oh, I like my coach. Oh, she's so helpful. It's really based on they care about me because everything they're coaching me on is based on the vision I have for my business and the goals that I've set for my business. So they care about that. And a lot of times as franchisees, our goals are profitability, right? Money in my
Well,
pocket.
yeah, as you
And
always say, money in my pocket.
that's it. And too many times I heard sales, 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 revenue, 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 top line revenue. And it's like, yes, of course we have to have top line revenue in order to be profitable. But I'd love my coach to help me understand how do I become more profitable, right? If our expenses are way too high, that's money out of my pocket. But as a new business owner, maybe I don't know that I should be examining my merchant fees and trying to negotiate a better rate, or that I'm spending too much money on labor, which is a huge one, as we know, or that one of my clients bought all of her staff cell phones. They didn't need cell phones.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of different things like that. And so really being in a position to help our franchisees on what's important to them, it builds that trust. But not only that, it increases their satisfaction and their happiness, if you will, as a
Hmm.
business owner, as a franchisee of this brand, because now we're working on things that are impacting my profitability. And you know what else?
Hmm.
When I am a happy franchisee, I make a much better validator, and I'm going
Hmm.
to help you sell more franchises. So that's a
And
really key one for sure.
yeah, that's why we love to say like the number one driver of franchise company growth is happy, profitable franchisees. So that's why this is kind of important, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to highlight something you just said about the like really everything you said started with the trust, because when there's that trust, you're going to listen to the person because you trust them that they are right. They have good ideas, that they're looking out for you. You have your best interest at heart. So that was a really key thing. Um, what about the ownership thing? We always talk. I know we are always our goal was to help through the field coaches, franchisees go from being stuck operators to being business minded or like growth minded business owners. Are how much are we seeing that? Because I know and I've heard we're seeing that.
Well, yeah, there's a couple of things here. One of the big things that um, happens with strategic growth coaching is, and I've mentioned this before, is that the fact that the coach is now the accountability partner. I, like probably every franchisee out there, we can get stuck working in our business way too much, and we can always say, I don't have time. I don't have time for these things. I don't have, and so we push stuff off. We have good intentions. We want to do these things. When we have that extra layer of accountability, and it might seem silly to some that, well, why doesn't that person, they're an entrepreneur, just do the stuff you need to do to grow your business. Well, we all know franchising. That's not
We all
realistic.
know humans in
Right,
general.
humans. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, humans.
yeah,
So what the difference is that I have outlined with my coach the action steps I'm going to take from that session that I have owned and said I'm going to do. I know that in a couple of weeks when I see my coach next, she's going to say, Jen, did you get your action steps done? And again, it sounds silly that I'm going to be doing it because I'm afraid my coach is going to give me grief, but it goes beyond that. It's just that extra layer of, we all know we'll go to the gym with someone if we have, sorry, we'll go to the gym more if we go with a partner. It's the same
yeah.
thing. And we'll work harder to make sure that we get these things done. So that level of accountability is key. Plus, when we teach these coaches about how to keep people accountable, it's not just, oh, and you didn't get your action step done. Oh darn, try better next time. It's, and what got in the way? What was the obstacle? Let's see if we can work through that so that
Yeah.
you don't let that obstacle get in the way, because I know it's important for you that you wanted to get this
Mhm.
thing done. So maybe we just need to talk it through, figure out a solution, or what can we do to make sure that that gets done. And so that's a different thing too, because I've seen far too many people who need to hire someone, and I've met with them to coach them. They still haven't done the things, and then I've asked them, what's that obstacle? Well, I'm really afraid, or I don't know how. I don't
Yeah.
know how to post on Indeed. I just said I would because I thought I'd figure it out, but I really don't know how. So I didn't do it. And
Hmm.
now we can overcome that obstacle because now I know you don't know how to do it. So I think that's a big piece as well.
Yeah. So really, yeah, it sounds like a lot of, getting again, franchisees taking ownership because they have the goals they want to achieve, having that accountability partner that they trust. And that's why they want to be accountable, trust, respect, all of that. And it's, yeah, it really comes down to it's like their goals. So why don't we talk now about when you think about a successful field coach? One that's really driving results, and which is makes the franchisee happy in a good way. What skills and traits, let's just highlight a few things because we get this question all the time, right? Like, what am I looking for? What are some of the traits and skills?
Yeah, I could certainly, this whole podcast could be
We could
about
do
the
like a
traits.
three-part series, probably.
Right? Yes,
Yeah.
totally, totally.
Yeah.
There's so many. I think, I've already mentioned active listening, which is a skill, and it's beyond just, oh, I'm just going to sit and listen to you. Really learning
Right.
how to be an active listener. And then again, knowing how to ask those impactful questions. And if anybody's ever heard of motivational questions, it's the same thing. And that's really to help those franchisees think things through or think about things in a different way to kind of come to their own conclusions or figure out their next step or whatever it might be. um, another one is we have to be empathetic, but we can't be too empathetic, because
Yeah.
we see that coaches who are really high in the empathy then don't hold people accountable and kind of get walked on a little
Yeah.
bit. So we need somebody that can be really maybe strategically empathetic, because we do need that skill for sure. So
Mhm.
there's that. I think one big one is you need someone. Someone told me recently, like, you need a Pied Piper. And I really liked that. You
Mhm.
need someone who people will follow, as your field coach. If you're someone who people follow, they, you have influence over them. And I don't mean
Mhm.
like in a cult or anything. I
Yeah.
mean, they just, your energy, your things that come out of your mouth, the way you speak, your
Yeah.
knowledge, your coaching ability, all of these different things really lends itself well to being able to influence others. So to
Mhm.
influence and sometimes persuade the franchisee using your questions and other examples that we have of, using what of, hey, Joe over there in Tampa, this is what he tried and it worked really well. That's something that maybe you could consider, because I think I've seen that he's gone up by 7%, whatever it is, right? So
Mhm.
it's being able, these are all skills, again, in that influence and persuasion, to have those in your toolbox to pull them out, these different strategies, so that you can influence and persuade. And I think that's a key one. Um,
Mhm.
so that is something that not everyone just has that ability right off the hop.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's probably really anybody that's listening to this that hadn't thought of the fact that there's actual skills that can help make all of this easier and more effective. Like you said, motivational question, like the right questions, and having it. Well, how do you have influence? Like, oh, you can be taught, right? Like there are things you can be taught about all this. And I think also just what I've been hearing is that the coaches that have taken our field coach certification program have, and I'm not saying this, it sounds like I'm plugging AC Inc. I mean, it is our podcast, so I guess that's kind of allowed.
You're
But
allowed.
what, yeah, but what I'm trying to say is a coach that has the tools, resources, the right training, and some of the right DNA to start will be more empowered, and able to do the things that they need to do and make things happen in their role. So it's like I thought so, but now that we've been doing it, it's awesome to see that it actually, there is a solution to this broken support problem. So, and that's exactly why we built the strategic growth coaching framework and the field coach certification.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, let's face it, field coaches, you ask them their background and how did they become a field coach? But just like me, I was a really great franchisee and I wanted to sell. And so I sold, and okay, come be a field coach. Or I worked as a manager of a store and I know
Yeah.
the operations really well. Well, come be a field coach. How many of
Yeah.
those coaches have ever been trained on coaching? Probably
How
not,
many,
not many.
Yeah, how many of them, I always like to flash back to this. Well, I don't really, but how many of them have been taught how to get, in my case, it was like a male franchisee who had invested $400,000 who was 30 years older than me to like listen to me or whatever, right? Like that's you don't no one's training on that really. So it's love it. So yeah, trying to help franchisors turn field support into what it really should be, and it really is a real growth engine. So JB, you and I have been known to really nerd out on anything to do with this whole franchisee profitability. And I think we both have so much passion for franchisees, having especially been in the shoes of a franchisee. And, helping brands, I think we just get really excited about talking about this, helping brands turn franchisee support into a secret weapon that really drives financial wins for both the franchisor and franchisees, not just one or the other. So yeah, this is exciting.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm really excited for this podcast. And so, I really think that it's important to that you and I we could just fill this podcast all of the time and just talk and talk and talk, but people would probably get annoyed or bored of us. So what we're going to do is this podcast is going to be a weekly drop, and it's Ange and I, we can't resist, we're going to get together once in a month, and we're gonna record just the two of us. But then the other three in a month, we're going to tag team. So sometimes it'll just be me, sometimes it'll be Ange, but we're going to have a franchisor client, somebody who's worked with AC Inc., come on and just spotlight them and their struggles and what brought them to AC Inc. and what we've done with them and how it's helped them directly and what they've done inside their system. And then we're also going to bring on one of our amazing advisors and accelerator facilitators that we have to come on and just talk about their own experience, their learning, the things that are important to them. And we are also going to have a graduate of our accelerator program. So somebody that is field coach certified, and talk about their experience, because we really want to get different perspectives. And every month we're going to have a kind of a little bit of a different theme, so we're just not always talking about the same thing. But each month we'll have that theme that we'll share, and our guests will talk about that topic during our sessions.
So a little bit of structure. We're gonna have a little
Yeah.
bit of structure. That's the plan right now,
Yeah.
anyway. So hopefully we stick to it. We'll find out. Time will tell. And just as a little teaser for everyone, I'll be joined by Zach Nolte of Voda Cleaning and Restoration, who is had been a great client of ours, and they're a brand that's moving pretty quickly, growing fast, and recognizing the importance of getting their field support right, and getting this more proactive approach. So I'll be having him on, so stay tuned for that. So JB, I didn't tell you this, but you know me, I'm always coming up with stuff at the last minute on the spot. So in the spirit of our promise at AC Inc., we always have the promise to inspire action, right? And leave people with action steps so they can go do something right away. I thought it'd be fun if we had like a go be awesome challenge for our listeners at the end of every episode.
Oh, okay. This
Yeah.
is exciting. Tell us all about it, Ange.
Okay, so for today, I'll give you mine for today. So if you're a franchisor on a franchisor team listening right now, if you're maybe you're a CEO or a VP, COO, you're in the field supporting franchisees, what is one way you can start to empower a franchisee to take ownership of their success? So think about what when you're answering a question, or they're asking for help, or maybe first start by, I'll give you guys all a hint, like start out by finding out what's motivating them to be a franchisee, and then helping them see that when they do need help or they do feel like they need something, reminding them of their longer term goals, and then instead of giving them the answer to the question, asking them like, how might you find this answer if I wasn't available? Because it will be helpful for you, franchisee, if you don't need to wait for me to give you answers. So that's the Go Be Awesome challenge, is go
Right.
find out one way you can start to think about empowering a franchisee to take ownership of their success.
Okay, cool. Well, I've got my own challenge. And so my
Okay.
challenge is, I didn't know
Surprise.
we were coming up with challenges, is I want to, you know, just ask that you, listener out there, that you share this episode with your ops teams, field coaches, maybe your CEO, whoever you think might benefit from listening, and get them to tune in, because we're going to have lots of great stuff coming up, not only in this episode, but in future episodes.
Yes. And speaking of future episodes, don't forget to hit follow so you don't miss our episodes, which are so awesome, right? They're going to be so awesome.
They're going to be
And I know
amazing.
they're going to be amazing, of course. And and things are going to get fired up around here, I know, with lots of practical action steps and valuable key takeaways. So, this podcast is brought to you by the team at AC Inc., home of the Field Coach Certification and Strategic Growth Coaching Framework.
And if you're not on our roundtable invite list, reach out to us, because it's where the smartest franchisors connect and get support.
And until next time, go be awesome.